Yeah, it seemed like DeSantis put all his eggs in Iowa and had a decent showing. But what did he get in Iowa? He got 21%. He was only polling at 6% in New Hampshire.
Yeah.
So that second place vote, like you said, that whoever the vote is of I don't want Trump, that's always been right around like 40-ish. So we'll see if Haley, if you go just by the polls, Haley's supposed to lose tonight like 56-37. So if she has a good night, can she get to 40? She has a normal night. Does she lose by 19? Could Trump even win bigger?
And then, to me, the death knell for her, if South Carolina, where she was governor, and she loses big, where there's apparently a lot of Trump support for her there, if you can't, as a former governor, win your own state, that's going to hurt you, too, going forward.
I wonder what Ron DeSantis does moving forward. You think he just checks out of running for president for a while at least? I think you have to let Trumpism dissipate. He could jump back in, honestly, even 15, 20 years from now.
See, I think
15, let's say he's 60.
I think DeSantis should have been a better candidate. I think he has a better track record than he showed. I honestly think watching him look around before he raised his hand in that question about would you still support Trump, whatever, I was kind of like, I know sometimes you make too much of little things. For me, that was really telling. This is a hardline guy who has a moral compass and believes what he believes and has to check to see how other people are voting on the debate stage. And also, he doesn't come across, likability is huge, and he doesn't come across really as likable. So it was going to be an uphill battle for him anyway, but he didn't show well at all.
He's not charismatic, doesn't come across authentic. I think you could make the case that he might be the best actual person in the entire race who would be the best president. I think you can make the case that Ron DeSantis would be the best president of anybody out there, but he's not good at running for president.
I would have voted for him, but he's not going to be there. But I do think, too, he's still really young, especially by presidential candidate standards. And I think this dry run will help him, and I think we'll see him run again.
I would think so.
Get rid of the lifts.
You have to do that. Just own it. If you're short, just own it. This is totally me just looking at the situation. I have zero inside info. But when I watch him out there with his wife, I feel like the wife likes running for president more than he does. I get a little bit, she's a beautiful woman. I get a little bit of a Jackie O vibe. I almost feel like she would think it'd be really cool to be first lady. And after this showing, DeSantis might be like, okay, I'm a really good governor. Are we going to put, by the way, his kids are young. What about when his kids are older and they're teenagers and they have to deal with all that? I just feel like the wife really seems like she enjoys running for president, and he's kind of like, man, this is work.
Maybe, because if you watched his speech where he pulled out, that was the most relaxed Ron DeSantis I've seen at all. Honestly, he was smiling. He looked relieved to me.
I found that funny because I was watching it. It was 4.5 minutes. About 3 minutes in, he made, and this is probably the TV person in me, this is clearly taped, 4.5 minutes. He made just the slightest flub, just like I did. It was nothing big, but he just went and finished it. Whereas I feel like if you're taping something for 4.5 minutes, you do it perfectly clean. I think at that point he's like, I'm done, dude. I don't care. I made a little flub. I'm plowing through.
Right, I'm out of here.
We're taping it. One hit, one tape, one take. Let's go.
I've been there. Yeah, I know. Bad candidate. I think good resume, bad candidate. But I'm sticking to my prediction, which I made probably a year ago. I still don't think Biden's running. I still don't think. I think at the convention, and I'm not saying that I wish him well. He's my president, but I think there's enough backlash against him now. Little things that I see that I'm like, there's a lot of people with daggers around him now. I think they're going to come to some understanding that there's health issues, and for the good of the country, he's a hero. He will at the convention, and they'll bring out Michelle Obama or someone else, and they will be the Democratic nominee.
Here's what I think is going to happen. I was talking with Eric Messersmith about this. This guy, Eric Messersmith, knows politics up and down. And he put out a very logical timeline of what could happen. And I think if you think about it, it makes a lot of sense. Basically, the expectations for Biden, they're so low. They're so low. Everybody thinks that if he goes out there for a debate, he's going to fall down or just stutter or lose his mind or freeze like Mitch McConnell. So I think the expectations are so low, kind of like when he did the State of the Union. He actually did okay. And for Biden, okay is a win because we expect him to fall down. So I think if they actually debate, in my opinion, one of two things are going to happen. Biden's going to perform terribly. And I would put this at 50-50. Biden's going to perform so bad that all of a sudden people are going to say, you have no chance. Then he gets replaced. But I think if Biden is good enough to basically, let's say he, in theory, ties every debate versus Trump. Well, that's actually a win for Biden because the expectations are so low. Then I think it's a toss-up. So I think it all comes down to if Biden can just look like a normal candidate, Biden's always going to have a gaffe here or there. But if he just goes ahead and he swings and he has a couple shots and he walks away from the debate and you're like, oh, he didn't totally get smoked, I think he stays in. If Trump is smoking him and Biden's having senior moment after senior moment, then he gets replaced.
I just think the powers that be have looked at it. I could be wrong. And they're like, look, we're campaigning on the fact that our candidate is not Trump. Okay, abortion's a big thing. Like you can already see how they're making that a big issue. I don't know if that's enough to carry the day at this point. It was in the past. But their main thing is we're not Trump. And that, in order for that to work, you got to energize your base to get them out there. It's not about, here's what I'm doing for you. It's kind of, I'm not that guy. And you got to energize your base. And I wonder if there's enough energy behind people wanting Biden, because that's how you're going to win, is you're going to get people energized and to the polls.
I don't think anybody really wants Biden, though. I think the vote for Biden will be.
That's the point. Is that if you're not energized about a candidate, right, and the message is our guy, at least he's not that guy, you've got to energize your base, and Biden can't do that. That's why I think somewhere the discussion is underway how we get rid of this guy.
No, for sure. I do think, though, look, I think at this point Trump is a stronger candidate than Biden, but they're both really weak candidates. They are.
It's embarrassing.
No, I know, but they're actually both really weak candidates versus anybody else. When you see this polling, you don't have to like Nikki Haley. I understand that. I understand why people think she's just like Hillary Clinton. But if you look at the polls, I know we can't say these polls are 100% accurate, but Nikki Haley polls much better in a general election than Donald Trump. Even though Donald Trump is so much more popular in a Republican primary, Nikki Haley would probably beat Biden easily. Whereas I think, again, if Biden doesn't fall down, it's still going to be a toss-up between about 5-6 states. It's going to come down to, like it always does, Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania, North Carolina, Arizona. And Trump he's brought Georgia back in play for the Democrats recently, which would never be the case with any other candidate.
I just think
Nevada also.
Trump has so many people that hate him, Republicans who won't vote for him, that too many negatives, right, to start with. And the fact that he has all these legal issues timed out perfectly up until the election, that's not a good thing. Although I do think he's gotten, at least in the primaries, a bounce by being the persecuted guy. Mm-hmm. So there is a political bounce to that. But in a general, too many negatives. So you have two guys who are just loaded with negatives. It's kind of embarrassing.
It is. And that's why what you said about firing up your base, I would agree with you in most years. But I think Joe Biden is also, he's so unpopular that to craft a winning campaign, you have to make it not about Joe Biden. That's just true. You have to.
Yeah, it'll be about he's not Trump.
Well, that's what I'm saying.
That's the whole campaign.
You can't make it a referendum on Biden because he's super unpopular. So I'm just talking from a strategy standpoint. I don't want Biden to run. But I think if you're the Democrats, your strategy has to be he's not Trump. He's not a dictator. You have to run on abortion, and you have to try to make a case of the Supreme Court and say, hey, we have a very conservative 6-3 court, and if you ever want to flip that, you got to keep voting for Democrats. That would be the best strategy, in my opinion, because it's hard to point to Biden and say, hey, he's great.
And I think they understand that, and you see what they're talking about is, I mean, he attacks Trump nonstop, and so do his subordinates, and they talk abortion. But if I'm a Democratic strategist, I'm like, this isn't going to be enough because you got to get people to the polls, and I don't know if they'll do it for this guy. But if we get a different voice in there, last minute, health concerns, we have a much better shot of winning this.
I think they have a better shot with anyone. Even this guy, Dean Phillips, who nobody's ever heard of. Even if you're voting for the agenda.
He was just on Piers.
Yeah, he's got a nice little percentage. I think in New Hampshire, he's pushing like 28, 32%, whatever it is. Nobody's ever heard of this dude, but he's a very reasonable...
Biden's not even on the ballot in New Hampshire, which is hilarious.
But this guy's a reasonable person, and he's young. He's like 54, 55. I think Democrats just want... If you're voting for the agenda, just give me the agenda 30 years younger. Somebody who's competent, somebody who doesn't have these mistakes, somebody who goes out and does interviews and gets out there.
Biden hasn't. That's why I don't understand there hadn't been backlash by media. Like, it used to be a staple. The president takes questions even from enemy media. And he doesn't do any of that. And the only time he'll ever take questions is when there's a band playing in the background so you can't really hear what he says.
Or the helicopter.
Or the helicopter. That's all he does. How about that? Just do a press conference where you're going to take 25 questions. But that tells you that they know he's a bad candidate because he won't do that.
I think it's silly that we don't even know if he's going to be running for president or not.
Well, he said he is. What I'm saying is a conspiracy theory.
Okay.
I don't believe he's running. But he's, by everything that
but
he's done...
But a lot of people have that theory.
Based on his age and based on the fact that he has a lot of snafus, a lot of flubs.
That's the thing. If you look back... The whole narrative of hiding in your basement for COVID, let's be real, that was the perfect cover for the campaign. But I think it's also fair to say, if you go back, by the way, because I've done this, if you look and watch Joe Biden in those debates on the campaign, it's a whole different ballgame even 3.5 years ago. It really is. The decline has been quick in the last 3-4 years or so. It really has. He didn't look the same in 2019, even 2020. He didn't sound the same. He didn't. It's been a very precipitous drop over the last 3-4 years. Because if you watch him, just go back, Google a debate in 2019, Google him talking in 2020. There's been a fall off in the last 2-3 years.
And I hear people say, he's always had a stutter. No, he didn't. I know him well enough from back in the day. He didn't really have a stutter. And the counter that I see, because that's what makes Twitter hilarious. Like, you have paid operatives. Like, you can see they use the same terminology on both sides. Like, these are our talking points today. But there's been a lot of attacks from Trump. He's not well. He looks bad. Melania hates him. Like, all these things. There was something out there that he had these red marks on his hands, and it's syphilis. And like all these, like suddenly they're going after Trump that he's not well, which is obviously to counter Biden, who doesn't look well at times. But I think overall Trump is still pretty energetic. I guess he confused Haley with Pelosi in a speech the other day, and everyone's like, he's not cognitively prepared for the job he might have. They go after Trump. Trump is more energetic, right? I mean,
100%.
Seems more in control of his faculties than Biden.
Yes, but this is my point.
But they're both old. They're both really old.
Yeah, I actually don't want either of them, and that's one of the big reasons. I just give me a 55-year-old, hell, even 60. Even RFK Jr. is 69, but he's a young 69, right? He doesn't act. I know his voice is messed up, but he looks like he's 55.
That was an accident 27 years ago. He's fine.
No, but this is my thing about...
He's also hard to listen to, which, whether or not that matters, I think it does.
Yeah, unfortunately it does. Too. But I'm repeating myself, but that's where I do think Biden has been painted as such an elderly nursing home patient that all he has to do is not get clobbered by Trump publicly, and it looks like a win for Biden. I do think that's true.
I also think his staff is awful. Like, How many times does
Kamala is a big problem with the succession is a huge problem.
Of course.
Maybe Biden would actually step down if his VP was more popular. But you can actually make the case as old and unpopular as Biden is, he still gives the Democrats a better shot than Kamala, which is really pretty pathetic.
And you can't bypass Kamala. You can't.
I think
without losing a part of your base. I don't know if Gavin. That's why I say Michelle Obama, who has very few negatives, wildly popular. I don't know if she could run the country. I wouldn't vote for her, but people love her. I think she would be their best shot to win.
Science asks, do you guys not see DeSantis' policies as bigoted? How are you saying this guy is a good man?
I think some of that stuff, I've read about some of the stuff. I didn't like some of the things he did with basically going after. He did go after some black voters who were sent ballots by the state, and then there was a press conference about that to make it look like black folks were basically illegally voting. And I did think that was wrong. But overall, I think Ron DeSantis is a good guy. All those policies in Florida, I don't know every single one of them. But when I hear Ron DeSantis talk, he's a pretty reasonable dude. He served this country. He's not a charismatic person. He doesn't come across as authentic. But also look at this. He won by 19 points in Florida after barely winning 4 years prior. And he got a bunch of black and Latinos to vote for him. So I don't live in Florida, but he's very popular in Florida, not just with white people. So to me, it's hard to go there, to quote Steve Spagnuolo. Dude, you won 19 points in Florida, which was a purple state for the last 20 years. You're doing something right. And a lot of people like your policies, black, white, Latino, women, men, whatever, if you can win Florida by 19 points.
And a lot of it, too, is Democrats going after him early on, like the "Don't Say Gay." You ever read that bill? It's not about not saying gay. There's not. It's about what's proper for young kids, really up to I think third grade, for a teacher to talk about in class. It wasn't at all anti-gay. I read it.
I think it was,
but everyone thinks that that's what it was.
I think it was sexuality as a whole was not supposed to be discussed.
And it was like a really short bill. I mean, it wasn't complicated. It was. This is not appropriate, and it listed some things, and it had nothing to do with being hetero, being straight. It was sexuality and what's age appropriate. But it got labeled as "Don't Say Gay," and I would venture to guess if you asked a lot of people, they would think that's really what that bill was about, and it wasn't.
I think you can make the case that Ron DeSantis might be the best governor in the country. Surely handled COVID as well as anybody in the country. So that's why I think it's hard from a national perspective to really, I'm not going to sit here and crush Ron DeSantis. You're doing something right when you flip that state from a toss-up to winning by 19 points. People in Florida really like his policies.
Now, what do you think about Haley? Haley has gotten a lot of support from the Democratic side. And I was wondering, too, this is a good question to ask you. Like, I originally bought in that Democrats would rather face Trump than someone else.
A year and a half ago.
And now I'm wondering if that's still the case. You're seeing them prop up Haley a lot, obviously a little bit more moderate. I don't know a ton about her. She seems like a bright woman. But now I'm not so sure the Democrats want to face Trump in the election.
Oh, I still think, though, that even though Haley's not going to win, I still think Haley would beat Biden much easier than Trump.
That's the polls, the ones that I've seen. Trump would win, but Haley would win by a bigger margin.
Yes.
Which backs up what you're saying.
So I think at the end of the day, if you go back to the midterms in 2022, that's when, and then after January 6th, for a while there, Trump felt toxic. Like you would never win a general election with Trump. That was the narrative, and if you look at what happened in 2022, you can make that argument. But that's been flipped. Like the January 6th narrative, it's been sanitized by right-wing media. It has. I think that's basically brought along a lot of people who are against Trump after the whole election deal. And they're saying, okay, all right, he's okay, he's going to win, blah, blah, blah. Biden does this, Hunter Biden's laptop. They're kind of, you can do a little whataboutism there. I understand that. But I still think at the end of the day that Trump is the weaker candidate versus Haley in a general election. Not a primary, but in a general election, I think Haley's a better candidate.
I also think she hasn't been fully vetted yet. Like if she's the nominee, that's when they come after you with everything. They're not going to waste it on a primary. So I don't know. I don't
She's
know
taking
enough
it from her
about
own party, though.
Not to the extent that she would face.
Dude, if you go on political YouTube, political Twitter, the arrows have been out for Haley for months by all these big podcasters that have a huge audience. Tucker Carlson, Patrick Bet-David. I mean, Vivek has been going after her for a month, and now he's just essentially Trump's attack dog at all these events. They're coming after Haley strong.
I know. I just think it's a different game once you get into the general, and she's the one that the other side can focus all their attention on. I also think, too, Chris Christie, who I never liked, took a shot at her, which isn't going to bode well for her. I don't know if it's a big impact. She's not up for this. She's going to get smoked. I never liked Chris Christie. Like, you just bowed out. Stop it. Why would you? It also shows me he's not honest because he went after Trump. He was there to go after Trump, period. But that's what you thought about Nikki Haley. You didn't really unload like that during the debates.
But they all do that. They all endorse Trump. And
sorry, I never liked Christie.
They're going to stump for him. And did you see the other day where somebody asked Trump right after DeSantis drops out, and they're like, "Are you still going to use Ron DeSanctimonious?" He backs up and he goes, "That name has been retired." That's why, look, is it good for democracy, what we have going? No, but I'm sorry, man. Just from a comedy/entertainment standpoint, I don't know how you can't not just pay attention
Ron
for the next
DeSanctimonious
10 months.
Let me ask you this. This is something that I'm serious about. If Trump got elected, like, I don't want the country to burn. There are so many people that hate him, organized, big-moneyed people. Do you think it would be – I'm not even talking about how he governs, because I think if you look at his policies before COVID hit, I think it's fair to say a lot of people thought they were working. But because of who he is and really the nonstop campaign to just destroy this guy, like him or not, do you think – and a lot of people with money – against him, he gets elected, do you think we see chaos in the streets?
No.
No?
I mean, you'll see a little bit here and there. I think whoever wins, there's going to be some type of small issue, regardless. But I think if he wins, he'll be able to govern. And look, at this point, what do you care, dude? You're not trying to get reelected at this point. So if you thought Trump was unfiltered before, think about him in his final term where he does not give a crap about reelection.
And also, I will say this. I am not a Trumper. I'm not. Like, I would have preferred someone else just because he has too many negatives, and I'm not on board with – I'm not riding with Biden. But what
You're not riding with Biden?
What I've seen over and over again is he's admitted he'll be a dictator. He was asked – I saw the clip. He was asked, and it was like from a legitimate news organization, all right, what is your first day? He goes, I'm going to be a dictator on day one, and I'm going to shut down the border, and I'm going to ease up on the war against energy. And he said, that's just one day. The first thing, I'm going to shut down the border, and we're going to start drilling. And that's it. And then I'm going to be a president beyond that. And it was like, see, he's going to be a dictator. He said that those are the two things he'll be a dictator, which presidents do. The first day, they write a couple executive orders.
I also think a lot of times at these events, Trump is playing to the crowd. If we're 8-9 years into Trumpism, if you don't realize that some of the stuff he's saying is performance art, playing to the crowd to get an ovation, I understand you have to take some of the things he says literally, but a lot of it is, it's almost a show. It's a comedic performance to get laughs. You can't take everything the man says literally.